Brent. That is another Poundcast theme remix. This one's from Elliot Feltner. Thank you, Elliot, for sending that in.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. He's got the apple bites in there, which I appreciate. You know.
Yeah.
So Elliot, of course, is one of our Patreon subscribers. And the Patreon subscribers have been sending in remix after remix, and they're all pretty cool.
I mean, they're just so creative.
So creative. Everyone's doing a different kind of vibe with it.
What a creative outlet.
What a creative thing to do to sign up for our Patreon and listen to extended Poundcast episodes, patreon.com/Poundcast. And you can get access to the stems of that song. And you can make your own remix for fun and get it right here on the Poundcast, patreon.com/Poundcast for a very low amount of money. You can support us and get bonus, like I said, extended Poundcasts, longer episodes. But of course, thank you for listening. If you're just listening to the free version, that's fine. I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, there's a lot to be gained from that.
There's a lot to be gained just from listening to this.
And also, you know, we should mention that the Poundcast is now on video. You can. It
is now on video. Today, my hair is looking kind of poofy. You can see what my hair looks like. You can see my messy office behind me. All you gotta do is look us up on video. Look us up on video. YouTube. Just look for the Poundcast on YouTube, and you'll find it. We're on YouTube. And you know what? Another way to support the Poundcast is I just want to show you the product here. Louisville Vegan Jerky Company is sponsoring us, of course, Brent. But I just wanted to show you this. I think I might have showed it a couple episodes ago, but I'm still loving this flavor. I got 2 bags of it, and I gotta try it. Sesame gochujang. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that. Gochujang. But if you want to gochujang, actually go to LouisvilleVeganFoods.com, and everything in the store there is going to be 20% off if you use the code word Poundcast. Just use the code word Poundcast. And look at this flavor, Brent. You ever tried this one? Man. Yeah, I think I tried that flavor. That's good. I mean, just the packaging alone is cool. Sweet chili teriyaki. This one's good. Sweet chili teriyaki. And of course, this is kind of like my classic favorite flavor, but I think gochujang might be the new favorite, but smoky Carolina barbecue, that's pretty darn good too. And look, this stuff is hand-bagged in the USA, and they're friends of the Poundcast, and you can't go wrong if you go to LouisvilleVeganFoods.com, use the code Poundcast, or you can get it at your local grocer, especially if you go to Whole Foods or Sprouts, my favorite place, you know. And also, anyway, there's lots of different other flavors too. There's plenty more flavors. Different. You know, we're just cracking the surface here with these flavors. It's not just jerky too. They've got toppings. They have chocolate. Just different stuff. The chocolate's good too. Geesh. This episode of the Poundcast is also brought to you by Rockin' Pins. That's right. Rockin' Pins. They do enamel pins of different pop culture figures and classic figures and even more niche figures. They also do shirts. They have iron-on patches. They have decal stickers. They've got they're all about highlighting and celebrating various pop icons and properties. If you're looking at the video, you can see I'm holding up my Rockin' Pins right now. He made some really high quality pins, which you can buy coincidentally on DougPound.BigCartel.com. I can get some other merch on there too. Speaking of the devil. But there's all kinds of different properties. You like Beavis and Butthead, they got Beavis and Butthead stuff. You like Andy Kaufman, there's Andy Kaufman stuff, Mitch Hedberg stuff, Jimi Hendrix stuff, James Brown. What do you want? Betty Boop, they got it. Brent, I got a question for you. Do they have Pink Floyd?
Probably, yeah. In fact, they do. They very much do. I just verified it, and they do indeed.
Now, is this stuff licensed? Is it officially licensed, or what are we talking about here?
This is all officially licensed stuff, and it's all on rockandpins.com. And you can check out all the stuff they do. They also have an Instagram page where you can check out a lot of stuff. As it's Rockin' Pins is the Instagram, Rockin' Pins. So it's like
at Rockin', ROCKIN Pins. And if you want to get, do we have a code for that for them too?
We got a special little code.
Wow!
If you order merchandise on rockandpins.com, you can get a whole 25% off.
What?
With the code.
What? What's the code, Brent?
It's Poundcast.
That's right. All of our sponsors use the code word Poundcast and get major savings.
Major benefits. So check out the stuff on rockandpins.com or rockandpins on Instagram and see what you like. There's a lot of stuff on there. All kinds of pins, all kinds of comedians, all kinds of music things and TV shows, whatever.
You can't go wrong. Now, I'm going to mention one more thing, Brent, is if you want to support me personally, you can go to patreon.com/DougPound, DOUGGPOUND, and you will have access to the Squirrel Report, which is a daily video I do every day. And sometimes I do little videos around my studio, and I give you little sneak peeks of unreleased content, music before it comes out, and just general stuff like that. And you can just say, thanks, Doug, for creating stuff and making my life wonderful.
That's cool. Oh, great.
That's how we do it.
And hey, you want a little bonus stuff from me? Check out my video game music podcast, the Legacy Music Hour. You might hear something you like.
That's right.
I also have this sort of other series, a limited series called it's called Pointed Questions. So you can check that out too.
Check that out.
Anyway,
is that about it?
Just a little something. Yeah,
is that
sure.
About it?
Whatever.
Is that about it for
that's about it.
Let's intro.
Yeah, let's get into the episode. This is kind of cool, right?
This is very cool. We have Leonard Maltin.
Yeah. Film critic. I don't know what's the adjective there. It's legendary.
Legendary film critic Leonard Maltin. I mean, dang, you know what? I saw him at Sundance. Actually, when I got this Pizza Hut hat, because Sundance, it's sponsored by all these dumb sponsors, and you can go into their you can get free pizza. I got Pizza Hut socks and a Pizza Hut hat, and I saw this guy sitting there, and I said to my friend, "Is that Leonard Maltin?" And I didn't say anything to him, but maybe I'll ask him if he was at the Pizza Hut.
Yeah. Let's save that.
Can't wait to ask him. All right, let's get on with the show.
Okay.
Oh, hello. Hi, Leonard. Ladies and gentlemen,
welcome
to the Poundcast. Okay, Brent, you go ahead. You introduce.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, you might know our guest. Our guest is probably best known as an actor in the major motion picture Gremlins 2. No, I'm just kidding. He's a legendary film critic and historian. And I'm, as a movie fan myself, I'm really excited to have him here. It's obviously Leonard Maltin.
Well, hello. Obviously or not.
So how did this all happen anyway, Brent?
Well, our friend at Rockin' Pins connected us with Leonard, and so yeah, thanks to Rockin' Pins for.
My daughter and I are big fans of what Mauricio does. His pins are fantastic, and he happens to hit the sweet spot for me because he has a fondness for obscure animated cartoon characters of the 1930s and 40s. So.
Let's talk about that. Let's just get right into it. What are some of your favorite obscure cartoons from the 30s and 40s that we should all find?
Well, for instance, people tend to know or remember Betty Boop, and they know her, even if they haven't seen Betty Boop cartoons literally, they know her image. her image has survived the years. Well, there was a supporting character in a handful of her cartoons named Grampy. And Grampy is a benevolent character who is a would-be inventor. And he comes up with Rube Goldberg type solutions to different problems that Betty has. And he's just an amusing looking guy and a very endearing character. And I show one of those cartoons to my students at USC every semester, and he always goes over big time. So Mauricio actually made a Grampy pin inspired by my enthusiasm, apparently. And he licenses everything he does, he licenses legitimately. So I admire that about him too.
Oh, looking up Grampy right now. He looks fun. Do you know any resources that people can go to find old cartoons like this?
Well, there's always YouTube may be the likeliest place to find some of that stuff. The official copyrighted Betty Boop cartoon DVDs and Blu-rays that are available don't include any of the Grampy episodes. Sorry to say.
Oh, that's a shame. Okay, can we get one more obscure cartoon character from the 30s or 40s?
Flip the Frog.
Flips?
From the early 1900s. Flip the Frog. And Flip the Frog was the invention of Ub Iwerks, Walt Disney's close collaborator in the 1920s. They started out together in Kansas City. And Ub, I believe is a Danish family name. Ub was perhaps the most proficient animator in the business. He could draw like crazy, and he had a sort of an engineer's mind. I interviewed people who worked with him and said, you wanted him to draw a perfect circle, he could, repeatedly, a perfect oval, repeatedly. And so he virtually animated Steamboat Willie for Walt Disney single-handed. So he helped birth Mickey Mouse. But then there was an entrepreneur who who had been working with Walt on a sound system in the early days of sound, and he wanted to produce his own cartoons. So he hired Ub Iwerks away and bankrolled him opening his own little studio. Well, so then he had to devise a new character, and the character he devised was Flip the Frog. And when I was a kid, they showed all these ancient cartoons on TV on local television stations every day. So I grew up watching this stuff. And it was like a museum of cartoons every day on local television in the New York area. And that's how I became acquainted with Flip the Frog. And Mauricio now has a T-shirt and pin for Flip the Frog.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, it was Saturday morning cartoons. That's what you did on Saturday mornings. And I don't think that exists anymore.
No, and when I was growing up, it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday cartoons. It's in those earlier days of television, before infomercials and before off-network reruns, they had to fill all this time. And they filled it with old movies and old comedy shorts and old cartoons, especially in the morning and late afternoon hours for children. And that's how I saw The Little Rascals every single day, and Laurel and Hardy every single day. I'm older than you, so this is a different generation of the first TV generation.
Yeah, well, we grew up in the 80s, me and Brent, and we used to watch I used to watch Little Rascals and Three Stooges all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it was the same kind of thing. They always played reruns of old.
Yeah, it was old stuff. Always shows. Really old stuff.
I saw tons of Little Rascals. It's kind of interesting how I feel like, yeah, definitely you're a different generation. And yet I feel like we kind of probably did see some of the same stuff. But then all that kind of did change at a certain point where now kids are not watching Little Rascals really,
Yeah.
And if they are, maybe they're seeing the Little Rascals movie or whatever, that came out.
Yeah. And it's a shame because all that stuff that I watched and that you watched is still vibrant and funny and entertaining. And it's in the dreaded black and white.
Right.
People, sort of hold it like a cross to Dracula, black and white. If it's funny, you're going to laugh at it.
Right.
It's in black and white or in color. And I get very easily peeved by people who say that back to me.
I have a question, or do you mind, or unless you have something?
Well, I was just going to say I think the animation, I mean, this has probably been discussed ad nauseum with cartoon people, but like the animation from those days, the 30s and 40s, is just so much superior than if you watch a modern cartoon. They just look boring and kind of flat. Whereas like back in the day, a cartoon where like, Tom gets hit on the head with a frying pan and his head turns into the shape of the frying pan. It was just more like cartoony, whereas like now it's just sort of static to me.
Well, it was also more fluid too.
It was just very more liquidy, kind of like I just call it cartoony. Yes. It was more imagination going on with like the way.
And also see those cartoons you're talking about were made for showing in theaters. They're not made for television. And they were shown in theaters, and in the 30s, 40s, and drifting into the 1950s, before TV took over completely. And they were made on fairly healthy budgets. So they had the time. Time equals money in the movie world, and nowhere more so than in animation. And so they had the time to do the extra drawings and make everything a little fuller, a little richer, and that shows in the finished product.
Absolutely.
So
Chuck Jones, one of the great animators and directors of that era, used to refer to TV animation as illustrated radio. That was the put down description.
I'm going to agree.
Right. I get that. Yeah. Now, I have a lot of questions, and I have a lot of questions that probably people ask you all the time, and I hope you don't mind me asking those kind of same questions. But how many movies have you watched, do you think, roughly?
Well, when I was a kid, I used to keep count, and I stopped doing that a long time ago. But do
you think you've watched over 10,000 movies?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
That's great. That's so crazy. I mean,
last few editions of my big thick paperback reference book called Leonard Maltin's Movie Guide, which I did for over 40 years. The last editions, or several editions, had 16,000 reviews. And I had a staff working with me because no one person could have seen all of those movies. But I used to write about half of the new entries every year.
Oh, wow. So do you think do you think you've watched 15,000 movies?
Oh, no.
But 10,000 probably.
It's possible. I'm not going to get pinned down because as I say, I just stopped counting.
How many movies do you think the average person watches in their life?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day.
If an average person goes to the movies once a month, then that's 12 a year.
Yeah, right.
If they go to the movies to a theater, well, pre-pandemic, if they were in the habit of going to the theater once a month and streaming or renting 2 movies at home, that's 3 times 12. That's 36 movies a year.
Yeah. And so say someone does that for, okay, well, yeah. So it's not that much really, probably, Now, do you think that you've watched every movie pretty much? I mean, like if somebody names a movie, do you think, pretty much you've seen every movie that we can think like there? I wonder if there's a movie we can think of that you haven't seen.
Let me disabuse you of that notion, because first off, in recent years, I haven't had a steady reviewing gig, which I've had on and off over the years. At Entertainment Tonight, there were several spells where I was actively reviewing movies for them, and I saw damn near everything. But when that imperative was no longer there, I mean, I still post reviews on my website, and I try to keep up with. I want to keep up with what's happening. Keep abreast of new movies in general. But I've lost my appetite for just gobbling up everything that's there, and I know my own taste certainly pretty well now. So I have no appetite for gory horror films, and in fact, they make me upset. I take them too seriously, and so I just don't go to them anymore. I don't expose myself to them. Well, there's no need.
There is no need.
There is no need.
Yeah, it's only a movie. So that wipes off a fair number of the releases every year. I mean, even big hit ones. Sometimes my daughter, my daughter Jessie, who works with me, we host a podcast together called Maltin on Movies, and she is my social media guru. And sometimes she and her husband will go to see something, and a horror type film, and she'll say, "You don't want to see this."
Right.
But if she came back from that same film and said, "Oh, this one's got some interesting twists and something," then I'll give it a shot.
I too have some probably questions you've heard before, or really dumb questions, but for our audience, it might be okay. I hope you don't mind. What makes, in your mind, a movie good?
Well, I don't have a checklist, which some people ask me that question thinking that I possibly do, whether a mental or a literal checklist.
So it's like when you see it, It's not like a...
Yeah, exactly. Originality is a big factor, but then at the same time, I can see some films that are formulaic, and if they're really well done and entertaining, that can work too. Like I happen to love Westerns, which are not in vogue right now, but Westerns can be ritualistic, and those rituals are part of what makes it pleasurable to watch them. They do follow a certain pattern, although there are people who have shaken that pattern up considerably. But I can watch a formula Western and get a lot of enjoyment out of that.
What makes, are there things in movies that, besides gore and stuff, are there things that can turn you off to a movie? Like, what are some elements that might make to you a bad movie? Or what are some things you don't like that to see?
Well, the opposite of originality, cloning, or copying or ripping off, other movies. If I think, this is just a retread of, something that was done better by somebody else. A couple of years ago, I went to see Zoolander 2. And usually my wife accompanies me to these screenings. We like going to the movies together. But this, for whatever reason, she didn't come that night. And I was sitting in the audience by myself at a press screening. And it was at Hollywood and Highland at one of the Chinese sixplex theaters. And I thought the first Zoolander was pretty funny. So I had, no reason to expect less from this one. But it wasn't funny, and in my opinion. And at about the 20-minute mark, I said to myself, why are you sitting here? Because I don't walk out of movies. Mm-hmm. Once I'm there to the bitter end. And I used to say it was because there's always a chance that it could get better. But I actually abandoned that theory a long time ago. They never get better. A crummy film sort of signals that it's crummy right away.
Yeah.
This one was just straining and forced and to my way of thinking, highly unfunny. So finally, at about the 35-minute mark, I said, I don't need to be sitting here. So I walked out, which I never do.
The first walkout.
Yeah, I drove
Ben
home.
Stiller was waiting there at the top of the aisle.
Such things have been known to happen. And not in this case, though. I came home and I wrote a piece for my website titled, Why I Walked Out of Zoolander 2. Because I couldn't do a conventional review. I hadn't seen most of the movie. But I could review what I'd seen and how disappointed and upset I was by what I saw. And needless to say, that got many more hits than a conventional review normally would get, because that's conflict. That's, you know, that's kind of a grabber, which was not my point or my purpose. But
I have a question about that. Do you ever? I'm very self-conscious about expressing my negative opinion about stuff on the internet, on this podcast. In fact, you know, if it comes to movies I didn't care for or whatever, the most I could say was like, I don't think it was for me. And I'm really self-conscious about saying anything that could be, I don't know, hurtful to somebody who was involved with making it or whatever. Do you ever get, I mean, in your, you know, long career of reviewing films, is that something you ever were concerned about, or how do you deal with that? You know, being really harsh about a film, you know, and do you ever get self-conscious about that kind of thing?
Well, you know, I'm human. I have all these thoughts, all these feelings. I try not to be mean or mean-spirited. If something didn't work you just said something didn't work for you. Yeah. And that, you know, that's one way of putting it, that takes the burden of being negative out of the process. You're just being honest and saying, you know, because everyone's going to have a different opinion about a movie or their own opinion about a movie. And if it didn't work for you, then you're just saying that and nothing more. You're not saying, I hate it. You're not saying this is a crime against humanity. You're just saying it didn't work for you.
Has a negative review ever gotten you in trouble?
Oh, not really. In the earliest days of my long tenure at Entertainment Tonight, in the early 80s, I'd first been hired there. And so within, I think, 2 weeks of my first appearance on the show, I reviewed Grease 2. Now, the show was produced by Paramount Television. Grease 2 was a Paramount picture. And somebody in the executive area of Paramount Pictures called one of my bosses and grumbled loudly about how can you have a lousy review on our TV show. And fortunately, the man he got on the phone stood up for me and for the idea that he said, we're not stifling this guy. He's our new movie critic and he says what he feels. But of course, he had the ammunition that nobody liked Grease 2. So it wasn't like I went gunning for the movie. It wasn't a maverick opinion. It was, you know, it was kind of the consensus opinion. So, and then after that, I think several bosses later, I went through many, there was some blowback because they were really, really trying to get an interview with Barbra Streisand, who then as now didn't do many television interviews. And I didn't care for Yentl, the film that she directed and starred in. And I think that cost them that interview. And so that they weren't too happy about that.
So I have another basic question going back in time to your beginnings. Well, first of all, did you ever want to be in the film industry or, directly like working on films, or did you always want to be a critic?
No one, well, maybe today it's possible. Yeah. But when I was growing up, nobody aimed to be a critic. It sort of happened. And that's what happened to me. And also I grew up in New Jersey, in the suburbs of Manhattan. So it wasn't the same as growing up here in the midst of the film business. LA is a company town, and the company is show business. So you can throw a pebble and hit somebody who has something to do with show business. That was not the case in suburban New Jersey. Mm-hmm. So that may have had something to do with, not having dreams or desires of doing that. But when I was in junior high school, some friends and I tried making movies with my best friend's father's 8mm movie camera.
Same here.
and none of them turned out very well. It was a learning process. I learned how hard it is to do it. And the problem was the movies I was thinking of in my head were like real movies, and we had no equipment, no budget, no nothing. And you can make a really wonderful movie with no money and primitive equipment if you scale your thinking down to what the capabilities are in front of you. But I was envisioning a real movie, so I was always disappointed. So no, I didn't aspire to be in the movie making business.
So how did you become a film critic? What's the beginnings of that story?
Well, what I fell in love with was movie history. And I loved to write. And a friend and I started our own sort of amateur magazine when we were in the 5th grade. And it grew and evolved into what we used to call a fanzine, amateur magazine.
Sure, yeah.
Jesse and I interviewed George R.R. Martin last year. And he also came out of the world of fanzines. A lot of people flourished in that world because there was no boss telling you what to do. You could do whatever you wanted to, whatever you dreamed of. And as my interest in movie history grew and grew, that's what I wound up writing about more and more. So I wrote articles on Buster Keaton and Douglas Fairbanks and silent movie, stars and such. And I don't think anybody called themselves a film historian back in those days, but that's what I was sort of heading toward. And then when I was 17 years old, teacher in 12th grade, a teacher in my high school stopped me in the hallway one day and said, she'd seen the magazine I was doing, and she said, I've got a dear friend who's an editor at Signet Books in New York. I think the two of you would really hit it off. Here's his phone number. Call him after school one day and make an appointment and go see them. So I did. And
it turned out that he was looking for somebody. There was a book, there was a paperback book already being published by Bantam Books, another company, that was a guide to movies shown on television. And I knew this book inside and out. I used it all the time. There was nothing else like it. Well, he wanted to do a competitive book, a rival to that book. And he decided I was the guy to do it. So, you know, at the end of our first meeting, he offered me this extraordinary job, editing a book of thousands of movie reviews. Now, I don't think those reviews were very, very short, punchy, telegraphic style. So I don't really think of them as reviews or critiques. But that's the first time I ever did anything approaching that. And then when I went to NYU that fall, I joined the daily newspaper, and I started writing actual film reviews there. That was my first experience doing that.
Cool. Go ahead, Brent.
So going back to the question about, if I named a movie, you probably have seen it. Aside from kind of newer films, and you don't consume as much newer stuff as you maybe used to. So let's say pre-2000, let's say, if I named a movie, do you think you probably have seen it? And did you, like, pre-2000, let's say, or even 2010, whatever, do you think that you watched everything, back in the past, and even the really obscure stuff and obscure foreign stuff?
No.
Okay.
No, I've seen a lot, but they've also made a lot of movies over the years, so I don't want to oversell my.
Do you think you've seen enough where it would be hard to stump you, though?
Oh, I'm no good at trivia games. I'm terrible at them. My mind, I have a head full of facts, because I edited this reference guide for 45 years, and that was all about fact checking and and rechecking, and so I know a lot of stuff, or I should say I memorized unwittingly a lot of stuff, but the retrieval process doesn't seem to work when trivia comes around.
Well, how about this? Have you seen every famous movie?
Well, yeah, I guess so. I've seen all the Academy Award winners.
Sure, yeah. I've seen every Best Picture from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
I've seen every Best Picture since 1928.
Yeah. Was it Wings? Was that the first one?
Yes, Wings was the first winner.
Yeah.
Do you have any Best Pictures that you think should have won? Any major robberies of the prize?
Oh, you can play that game all day. Some people think that from the classic era, from the classic Hollywood era, some people think that the 1952 they gave the Best Picture award to Cecil B. DeMille's big, lavish circus movie, The Greatest Show on Earth. And it's a big, corny movie. And I happen to like it a lot. I saw it as a kid, and sometimes things you see and like as a kid, you sort of have an attachment to them.
Yeah.
Even if you grow older. Steven Spielberg's a fan of that movie too. He used clips of it in the War of the Worlds when there's a shot of some people watching TV, and that's the movie that's on the TV. But that was the year of High Noon. That was the year of Singing in the Rain. There were so many other, more significant and more artful pictures that year. So Oscar pundits, talk about that a lot. And in recent years, I've disagreed with the Academy on a number of occasions. So
sure.
Do you think Adam Sandler got snubbed?
Actually, that's a good question.
Well, Adam Sandler's performance in the Safdie brothers film is exceptional.
Yeah.
That whole movie got snubbed. I don't think there was a single nomination in the whole movie, I think, right?
Yeah, I know. And this is something that the Academy is addressing with their new, they've just had several meetings of the Board of Governors, and they're trying to be more inclusive in every aspect of that word. They want to expose their ever-growing membership to a wider spectrum of films.
I got this shirt. I got this shirt at Sundance.
It's great. Now that's one of my least favorite words. Snubbed.
Snubbed.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you like snubbed?
Because snubbed implies that everybody got together at a big meeting under a tent. Said, you know what? We're not going to give Adam Sandler a nomination. And that's just not how it works.
Did you like Uncut Gems?
Pardon me?
Did you like Uncut Gems?
Yes, very much.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Sundance, were you at Sundance this past January?
Briefly.
Were you at the Pizza Hut gifting lounge?
Yes, sir.
I saw you there.
Mm-hmm.
I said to my friend, I think that's Leonard Maltin sitting right there. I didn't bother you, though.
Should have come over and said hi.
So we have a Facebook page, and I told our listeners that you'll be here, and they did. I said, do you have any questions for Leonard Maltin? A couple questions came in. We could go through them if you want. Could be something here.
This is your decision to make.
I still have so many questions too myself, actually.
Oh, we could, we'll get yours in, Brent. We'll just ask a couple here.
Yeah, please.
You already mentioned Zoolander 2, but Carlos asks, what movie did you hate the most and why? Does a movie come to mind?
Well, the word hate throws me off.
Okay, well, let's not say hate. Well, let's say, like, which movie did you dislike or thought was bad the most?
Didn't work for you.
Or Brent, Brent, you can ask that too if you have one.
One of the worst movies I've ever seen was Stephen King's Maximum Overdrive. About the demon trucks.
I used to love that when I was a kid.
You're allowed to love it when you're a kid.
Now, why did you not like that?
I thought it was just impossibly stupid.
Well, I got to say, though, I sometimes think about that movie because now that things are becoming more automated, that seems like a concept, a sci-fi concept that kind of could be ahead of its time. Like, cars are being more autonomous and stuff. What if the cars became sentient and they did do what happened in that movie? It's kind of a cool concept, but I haven't seen that since I was a kid. It probably does. It's probably pretty bad.
That was the film that Stephen King directed. And that he got tired of other people buying the rights to his short stories and novels and then ruining them in the process of adapting them for
kind of like screen. How Kubrick ruined The Shining.
So in this case, he made the movie himself, and there was no one else to blame.
That's great. Brent, let's go to one of your questions, then I'll go back to the Facebook questions.
Well, so my pet peeve about movies is overuse of background music, especially kind of in the last 20 years or something. But how do you feel about music in movies? Does it bother you? I'm just curious if you relate to that at all. Sometimes I feel like music can be too loud, non-diegetic music, that is.
Yeah.
It can be too loud, and it also can just be too much, kind of almost insulting in that it's just superfluous in that it's saying
telling you how to feel, right?
It's telling you how to feel, but when it's already obvious based on what's going on the screen, that's the thing that kind of can ruin a lot of movies for me, the most out of any other aspect of a movie. And I was wondering if you ever kind of relate to that at all, or think about it.
Well, I love a great film score,
mm-hmm.
and I love how a great score can really add so much to a movie. And the only time most people notice a score is when it's bad, because it's intrusive or heavy-handed, or doing what you're describing. Over anticipating. underlining, emotions you already, feel without the help of the score.
Okay, so but even just the concept of it, even if the score is good, but it's still an overkill, that's not something that ever bothers you when you watch movies.
Well, it bothers me if I feel the way you just described. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, okay, yeah. I don't know.
I'm with Leonard on that. A good score is a good score, and if it fits in, if I'm not thinking about it and it's taking me out of it, I think it's fine. There's some good scores out there. And there's a lot of movies with a lot of music that are kind of cool.
You know a movie I rewatched recently was Aliens, the sequel to Alien, and I noticed that there was a lot of silence in that movie. Or a score wasn't used too much in the movie, and when it was used, it wasn't that loud. It wasn't overbearing like scores can be. And I thought, this is how you do it. This is how you do scores right. I feel like. And
the music in Uncut Gems is pretty. Pretty bombastic.
It was different though. I liked the score in that because it was kind of, it was sort of, it was, I don't know, it was more original to me sounding, or it also it helped create a mood that wasn't as typical for score. It almost was like a retro sound to it. It sounded, so I don't know. It felt purposeful.
Oh, I'm sure it was purposeful. I mean, it was trying to match the intensity of the action, what was going on with the characters and the incidents. But somebody told me before I saw it that he said, be ready for the first quarter hour or so to be very much in your face, and it was. And it was musically as well as dramatically.
If you want to ask another question, I have another question, but I can wait. You can go to a Facebook question if you.
Okay, this one's kind of interesting, but it might be kind of difficult. Well, whatever. Are there any flicks that you use as a litmus test to size people up, like as their taste? Like, if you like X, you'll probably like Y, or if you hate X, you'll probably hate Y. Maybe he's asking, are there any directors or movies that you say, if you're going to like this, you're going to like this other guy?
Yeah, well, no, I don't, and of course, I'm not a typical guy. I mean, movies occupy so much of my life. So I would never put anybody to that test ordinarily. But if I'm talking with somebody that I just met, or just become acquainted with, and they say something like, we're talking about classic movies, and I tried watching Singing in the Rain, and I just found it boring. I'm not going to spend much more time talking to that person.
Okay, there we go. I think that's the answer, right? Okay.
I mean, well, what is? Okay, first of all, I mean, I have a few questions. I'll just ask a couple questions here. Well, for one thing, this is like an obvious question that people probably ask you all the time. But what are your top movies? What's in the top 10 for you? I mean, not necessarily in order, but what are some of the movies that you would say?
Well, it's a tricky question for me because I'm so I was weaned on classic Hollywood. And so all of my top 10 movies are old, really old. And that doesn't mean that I have my head in the sand, and aren't receptive to. I just watched Spike Lee's new movie last night on Netflix, The Five Bloods, and I thought it was incredibly powerful. And I think it's some of his best work. And Delroy Lindo gives a performance that is just a powerhouse. So I'm as attuned to that as I am to stuff from.
You have more of a personal
My all-time favorite movie is still Casablanca. Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah.
I saw when I was a teenager, and there was a Bogart revival this was in the, everything I say makes me sound ancient. There was a Bogart Revival in the late 60s when the counterculture revolution kind of happened on college campuses and, in our society. It's around the time that Bonnie and Clyde came out and The Graduate and these films that really changed the conversation, in our society. And Bogart was kind of adopted as an anti-hero because he so often played, anti-heroes, never more so than in Casablanca. And I got to see it for the very first time when I was 15 or 16 on a theater screen, not on TV, where I got to see so many old movies. And I fell in love with it. I've never fallen out of love with Casablanca. That's still my favorite. Citizen Kane, The Maltese Falcon, Singing in the Rain, His Girl Friday, Howard Hawks.
I just watched His Girl Friday. I've been watching a lot of movies during the quarantine, and in the last month and a half, I've watched like 85 movies, I think. And I had never seen His Girl Friday before, and watched that during this last couple months. And I thought it was really good. It's one of my favorites of the 85 movies that I've seen in the last month and a half. That was one of my favorites. Yeah.
Well, it's a great movie. It's one of the greatest comedies ever made, I think.
If somebody if somebody says they don't like Casablanca, if they say that movie's no good, do you say, frankly, I don't give a damn?
That's from Gone with the Wind.
Oh.
No, because I don't condemn any.
If they like it, you say, play it again, Sam. See, I got my references mixed up. I got it mixed up.
Well, yeah.
Which I think I saw Casablanca. I didn't see Gone with the Wind, but that leads to another Facebook question. Somebody is asking, what do you think about pulling off Gone with the Wind from HBO Max?
Hold on. Wait, before you answer that, this is the joke you should have made. Is like if someone says they don't like Casablanca, you say, "Oh, I guess this is not the beginning of a beautiful friendship," or whatever, something like that.
Right. Okay.
That's what you say. Okay. All right. Anyway, carry on. Okay, Gone with the Wind. They're putting it back on HBO Max, by the way. But
what do you think about the controversy, or frankly, I don't give a damn?
I don't believe in locking any film away in a vault.
How do you feel about Song of the South too? Actually,
well,
same thing, right?
Goes for Song of the South too. Now, at the same time, I don't think you show movies like that without having an appropriate, I don't know if you call it a warning label, like tobacco, has to carry now, but it has to be seen in context. And you wouldn't want children to be raised on stuff like that without understanding that it was made at a different time, and when society was less enlightened, to put it mildly. And but whatever you do, however you choose to show it, you should at least make it available to people and let them draw their own conclusions.
I totally agree.
I agree.
And plus, and also, movies like Song of the South have a lot of redeeming things about them as well. There's, but like animation wise and the performances, the voice acting from Black actors too. Anyway, I wanted to ask you, is there, are you friends with, do you know other critics? And did you fraternize with other critics? I don't know. I'm just curious if there's like a society of critics.
There's an LA Film Critics Association. And we meet every December and vote on awards for that year's films. And we have other meetings during the year, just to take care of internal business and electing officers and pursuing other avenues of interest to us. So and we tend to go to a lot of the same screenings of films. pre-release screenings. And so, yeah, I know quite a few of my fellow critics.
And do you like to talk to them about movies? Do you guys get into fun conversations about movies?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
What about beefs, though?
Personal beefs or just disagreements?
I mean, disagreements about movies that turn into personal beef somehow or something like that?
Oh, no. Yeah. There's very little of that. Yeah. Because we are professionals, or at least I think we are. And, we know how to separate a movie opinion from a personal opinion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to change it up a little bit. There's more Facebook questions, and I have personal questions, but
we also have this game that we want to play too, as well. So.
Well, we don't have to do that, but what do you think about, not what do you think about, but besides movies, what else do you like? Do you have any other hobbies or things that you...
Long walks on the beach. I love jazz. I love music, and my interest is in jazz, early jazz, mainstream jazz, and up through the bop era. So again, my tastes are not the current mainstream, but vintage jazz.
Do you collect vinyl records, or how do you consume your jazz?
I don't collect. I've accumulated them. I still have all my vinyl, but I also, bought a lot of CDs over the years. Got a big iTunes library.
Okay. Now here's another Facebook question. This might be controversial. This is assuming that you don't like The Dark Knight, but Brian is wondering why didn't you like The Dark Knight?
That's one of the more controversial reviews that I've written. I really liked Batman Begins, and I thought Christopher Nolan and his brother, who wrote the film with him, did a terrific job of reinventing the origin story of Batman. And so I was looking forward to The Dark Knight. But it was too dark for my taste. It just was, I did not derive any enjoyment from that film, and that's a problem I've had with other Christopher Nolan movies. I certainly respect him, and hold him in high regard as a filmmaker. But my chief complaint about him is that he has no sense of humor. Apparently has no sense of humor. There's barely a glimmer of it in any of his films.
That's a pet peeve of mine too. Yeah, no sense of humor.
Do you like the Tim Burton Batman movies more than the Christopher Nolan ones?
Probably. Well, I wasn't that crazy about them either. I mean, Batman's had such a wildly uneven screen career over the last 30 years.
Yeah. It's like who even is Batman? Like if you look at the show and you look at The Dark Knight, it's like, there's no consistency here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of just think of him as Michael Keaton. I guess that's if I had to pick.
Keaton's the best one. And by the way, I just gonna say, I recently watched Beetlejuice for the first time since probably
you never. Oh, okay.
Since it came out, since I was in high school or something. I don't know. But I was thinking, this is bad.
Oh, you kidding?
Really?
No, I think it's a great movie. I love Beetlejuice. I actually saw that recently, and it had been. I mean, obviously, I saw it when it came out, but I saw it kind of recently myself, and I thought this is still a great movie. Even after all these years, I thought. Did you like it, Leonard?
It's fun. What do you think? What do you think about Beetlejuice?
I'm a fan of it.
Yeah, it's scary. It's so imaginative. It's imaginative. The music is really cool, and it's awesome. It's a really cool. It's a unique story too. It's a cool, weird, quirky story.
There's an original.
Yeah,
it's original. The music is good.
It's got an all-star cast. It's
an imaginative thing, but for some reason, I'm thinking like, this is dumb. I don't know. That's a controversial opinion. I know everyone. It's a beloved franchise. Not even a franchise. It's a beloved movie. Whatever. I'm just trying to be controversial here.
By the way, speaking of controversial, a movie I do not like is Gone with the Wind.
You're entitled.
Because talk about overuse of background music, I feel it's so melodramatic, and I just anyway. You love that movie?
I like that movie very much.
Okay, and Brett, did you have a question? Because I could ask another Facebook one here.
Well, I mean, it would be nice if we do have time to kind of play this trailer game. There's this thing. Well, whatever.
Oh, the trailer game. I thought you were talking about the other one I was talking about. The trailer game. We could do that.
Yeah, we do this thing. I mean, we don't have to do it just yet.
I have to plug in my laptop. Hold on.
We play this game where Doug will play trailers, movie trailers, and he'll give us the decade, and then we kind of have to try to guess what the movie is, and I think he'll try to like cut the sound if it mentions something like the title of the movie or something like that. But usually it's he's trying to find trailers that don't that you can kind of pick up on context clues and stuff. Do you think you'd be good at that game, by the way?
I have no idea.
Okay, well, you can give me a decade, and then I'll search a trailer.
Well, let's say, what decade would you be interested in, Leonard?
70s, 80s, 90s.
Okay, yeah. That's what I like too.
Okay.
I mean, you go.
Well, how about this? While I'm looking that up, I'll ask another question. You could choose to answer it or not. But have you ever looked up one of your own reviews in the Maltin Movie Guide and wish you had rated it differently after a second viewing?
Yeah, that happens sometimes. And we're no longer publishing that guide, so I have no recourse.
Would you make, since you would do revisions of it every year, right?
Yes.
So would you change? You would change your
changes.
Do any movies come to mind where it was like a big reversal of your opinion?
Yeah, Alien.
The
original Ridley Scott's first film.
And what was the initial review of it?
Well, as I mentioned, like with horror films, I'm a wimp. And I saw that film while I was doing a book tour, and I saw it in Boston at a screening. And normally, my wife would have been sitting next to me, and I would have been bruising her left arm, grabbing it at all those shock moments. And instead, I just ate my jacket. And so while I respected the film, I didn't enjoy it. And then 25 years later, they reissued it theatrically, and Ridley Scott made a couple of little changes, nothing significant. But I saw it again, and in those 25 years, two things had happened. My threshold for what I could, digest had risen, and it had been ripped off so much by other inferior movies that I said, I missed the boat on this one. This is a really masterful piece of work. So I completely revised my review and the rating.
Are you also, do you shy away from violence as well? Or is that,
well, it's not my favorite thing, but it's an ingredient in a lot of movies.
Do you like Quentin Tarantino movies?
I like some Quentin Tarantino movies.
What do you think is the best Tarantino?
Well, Pulp Fiction.
Did you like The Hateful Eight? Because that was a Western, and you like Westerns.
I like Westerns, but I didn't like that one.
What about Kill Bill? That's kind of a Western.
Well, I love Kill Bill 1 and 2. But Hateful Eight, I found complete disappointment.
Okay, I have a trailer here from a movie I saw recently that I really liked a lot. I thought it was awesome. And this is from it's from the 70s, I'll say that.
Okay.
And I haven't heard it. I don't know if they mention, I don't even know if there's dialogue in this trailer, so who knows?
Suspense, adventure, mystery, danger, courage.
Oh, I know.
Sorcerer.
I knew it before that said it.
It said it. It was Sorcerer. Have you seen Sorcerer?
I haven't seen it in a long time, but it's a really good William Friedkin.
Yeah, William Friedkin. I just saw that in these 85 movies I saw recently.
Yeah, I mean, these trailers are tough because they're gonna be so obvious, you know.
But I wouldn't have got that unless I had seen it.
Oh, here's one that I saw when I was a kid.
There is an inexorable force in the cosmos where time and space converge, where the here and now may be forever. An unavoidable whole moving through space, swallowing everything in its path. Now, man is about to enter the black hole.
It said it, the black hole. So.
Oh, the black hole.
I was going to guess the black hole, but
oh man,
yeah.
I should.
I was going to guess the black hole too.
Well, if you ever want to guess, say I got it. I'll stop it before they say anything. Here's one more from the 70s.
Candy Casey, very good. You're going to do it again, Victoria. Stop smiling. It's not the high school play. Count.
5, 6, 7, 8. 1.
All that work. Stand on your right foot. Point your left toe. Drop that shoulder. All that training. Too hard, is it?
He guessed. What?
Did you guess it?
I asked, is that a chorus line?
No.
I was thinking that too, though. By the way, then I thought
they dropped a couple. They dropped a couple hints in the.
Is all that jazz?
Yeah, it's all that jazz.
Oh, that's crazy. I haven't even seen. I want to see all that jazz. I haven't seen it. I want to see that.
I don't think I've seen that either.
Yeah, I'm going to get it from the video store tomorrow. Actually,
where are you going to go? Vidiots or Blockbuster?
Cinephile,
right? Is that Cinephile still going?
Yeah, right now you can do it's pickup orders only. You order over the phone or online, and then you pick up.
So you can't dine. No dining in there.
Yeah, no dining in. Yeah, Cinephile. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you want to play this game? It's not working out that great because it's a crapshoot with how good the trailer is going to inform the game. You know, like I could try one more. I'll try one more. This might be okay.
Sure.
All right, a little closer together. Come on, smile. That's it. Hold it.
It's terrific.
Columbia Pictures presents Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep in.
You know it?
What?
Kramer versus Kramer.
That's right. He got it.
Yeah. Well, Dustin Hoffman, Meryl Streep. What else would there be? You know, but I actually didn't. Right. I kind of didn't put that together. Do you like playing the Doug Benson game that he plays with
I'm the world player of that game. I always love working with Doug and being on his show, but I am the worst player of what he calls the Leonard Maltin game.
Well, when he reads these reviews, which are your reviews, I mean, do you remember writing them? I mean, like, there's so many reviews.
Oh no! But it's not about the review itself. It's about identifying a movie by hearing the cast list from the bottom up.
Right. But also, he gives the review as well, too, right?
Well, no, he gives you a hint of the review.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we only have a few minutes left. Maybe Brent and I could just talk about our favorite movies and see what you think. You know, get your opinion, see if we're right or wrong.
Okay.
Yeah,
there's no right or wrong where movies are concerned.
Okay,
yeah.
Like favorite movies of all time or favorite movies I've seen in the last month and a half.
There's no rules here. Okay, favorite quarantine films of yours, Brent. You can start with that.
Well, okay, I do want to actually. I'm curious about what you think of some of my all-time favorites too. But these are movies I saw for the first time in the last month and a half. But The Red Shoes.
Great.
And some other top ones were Anatomy of a Murder that I'd never seen before.
Terrific. And it's I watched some of it on Turner Classic Movies last week. You can't take your eyes off it.
No, it's great. It's really good. It's really.
Right, you got to write these down for me because I need some new movie recommendations.
This is a movie that you and I both saw recently. It was the Long Goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't like that one,
Robert Altman. Well, I'm not crazy about it. I was a big Robert Altman fan when he first came on the scene, and then I thought his work got spotty. And but he was a real talent. That film is not one of my favorites.
Well, His Girl Friday we mentioned, that was actually one of my favorites of this recent time. I really liked Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, which I had never seen before.
That's a fascinating film.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was kind of weird. I liked it. Yeah. Those are the ones that come to mind in quarantine. But should I go all time right now, or do you want to go quarantine, and then we'll go back to all time?
Okay, I'll go quarantine, but I won't even say whether I thought they were the best or not. These are just movies I've seen. Broadcast news.
Wonderful.
I mean, I don't know who wouldn't like that. That's a River's Edge.
Oh, I haven't seen that since it came out, but I was very impressed with it when I saw it.
Repo Man.
An old favorite, yeah.
Oh yeah,
really?
Okay.
Interesting. Okay. Oh, wow.
Okay. After Hours, Martin Scorsese's After Hours.
Oh gosh, I haven't seen that since it was new, and that's decades.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll pass on that one.
That reminds me of one of my all-time favorites, by the way.
The Blues Brothers.
Fun, a lot of fun.
That's a lot of fun, and it's one of my all-time favorites because I rewatched it in quarantine, so that was a double. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm just trying to throw something that's not boring in here. Did you see a movie called Vivarium that came out in the last few years?
Yeah, I did.
What did you think about that?
It left me wanting.
Thank you, because I didn't. Everyone, my friends were raving about it. 2 or 3 different friends recommended it. I watched it, and I'm thinking, I'm wanting. After it ended,
Actually, I got a quarantine movie that I'm curious if you saw it. It came out last year, in the U.S. at least. Under the Silver Lake.
I didn't get to see that.
It makes a lot of reference to older movies. There's a lot of Hitchcock references, and anyway, yeah. But anyway, do you like Hitchcock?
Oh yeah.
Okay, let me go. Oh, unless Doug, you have more quarantine movies, or can I go all time?
I don't need to go through my quarantine list, but I will ask. Do you like Weird Al Yankovic's UHF?
I'm not sure I ever saw it.
Oh wow!
Oh, one of my favorite comedies of all time.
Well, these are. I mean, some of my top movies of all time. But I'm curious what you think. But Hudsucker Proxy is one of them.
That was a Facebook question. People want to know: do you agree with Brent that it's one of the best movies of all time?
It's one of my top 3 favorite
I don't
movies.
agree with Brent, but I understand why some people like it more than I do.
So you thought it was bad, basically?
No, I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was a little all over the place.
And it really pays homage to Howard Hawks and Frank Capra.
Her performance in that Katharine Hepburn voice.
So good, yeah.
Is pretty incredible.
Okay, what about the Player? Speaking of Altman, one of my all-time favorites is The Player.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we get it. He just said,
wait, you didn't like it? You didn't like it? Okay.
No. You're saying it's one of your favorites. I like it, but I'm not crazy about it.
Okay, what about Swingers?
Oh, I like that very much.
Brent, is that one of your favorite? Is that one of your favorite?
It's in my top 10 of all time. And then speaking of Scorsese in the kind of early 80s, you mentioned After Hours, but King of Comedy. How about that?
Yeah, it's terrific.
That's what about Jacques Tati's Playtime?
Blows me away.
That's like top 5 for me. Yeah.
And I got to see it not too many years ago at the Egyptian Theater in 70 millimeter. And
oh, really?
That experience was kind of overwhelming because they have a huge screen, and he shot it in 70 millimeter, and he built that's all a set.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And where you looked on that screen was something that he designed and invented and meant to be there just that way. Yeah. It's a knockout.
It's like almost like looking at a Where's Waldo kind of book, where because there's all this stuff going on in different parts of the.
Yes.
Anyway, it's one of my favorites. Back to the Future 2. How about that?
No.
That's one of my favorites. I like that.
No. I found that a big disappointment.
You like part 1?
I like part 1 just fine.
Mm-hmm. What about the Shawshank Redemption?
Brent, we've gone over an hour. We should wrap it up.
Yeah, we should wrap it up. Yeah, but Shawshank Redemption, though, did you like it?
Oh,
no, that's another of my most bitterly discussed reviews, because I did not love that movie, and I have to confess I need to watch it again.
What did you not like?
So many people love that movie, really love that movie, and it didn't get to me. I remember seeing it at a screening at the Academy, and I've got to watch it again.
Yeah, you don't remember what you didn't like about it?
Well, I found it. I found the beats, the story beats too obvious.
Uh-huh. No, interesting. Well, look, I mean, I could go on and on, obviously throwing movies out at you and stuff. Did you want to say anything, Doug, or should we wrap it up? Or
we could wrap it up. But before we go, maybe you could just give us one movie you could recommend us to watch this week, or one movie that you think is the most underrated movie of all time, or both of those things.
Of all time, that's too much.
Or just an underrated one that comes to mind, maybe.
Yeah. Well, on my website, leonardmaltin.com, my daughter and I have been posting. We sort of took a break during all of the hubbub of the last few weeks. But we've been posting a series of movie recommendations, like quarantine movies. And these are not necessarily, great films, but they're really good films that didn't get the attention they deserved. Films like Wonder, Stephen Chbosky's Wonder, a really sweet, actually a beautiful movie with Julia Roberts and Owen Wilson and Jacob Tremblay, the little boy from Room.
Actually, I saw that on your website today when I was looking at it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I never even heard of this movie.
Yeah, well, that's the problem.
I mean, I've heard of Wonder Boys.
That's a good movie too.
I've never seen it. But, yeah.
And there's a great film called Lucky, starring Harry Dean Stanton. It was made at the very end of his life, and features all of his cronies and pals in supporting roles. And that's also a beautiful film about a man coming to the end of the road and dealing with his mortality. And a good movie called The Meddler, made by Lorraine Scafario, who made Hustlers last year. And this is a film about a woman played by Rose Byrne, who moves from New York to LA, and whose mother follows her because she's a meddler. Mother's played by Susan Sarandon. And it's a really good film. Comedy, drama combined.
So basically, you're saying people should just go to leonardmaltin.com.
Well, it wouldn't hurt.
And do you have anything else you would like to plug before we say goodbye?
My podcast, Maltin on Movies.
Cool. Would you ever want to be on a podcast called On Cinema? That's my friends do. It's a comedy podcast, and they sort of talk about movies.
All a matter of timing. That's all.
All right. Well, thank you, Leonard, for being on the Poundcast, and we really appreciate your time.
Well, you're very welcome. Nice to talk to you guys.
Yeah, hopefully it wasn't too like it wasn't the same kind of stuff you always talk about or whatever.
No. I enjoyed talking, and it was fun.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. We didn't even talk about Gremlins 2, but anyway, Leonard Maltin's in it.
Maybe next time. All right,
I'll talk about it when we go. Yeah, thanks, Leonard. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
You're very welcome.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
So, Brent, that was Leonard Maltin, huh? Pretty cool.
Yeah, let's do it like a debrief, for After Dark, about that, and we can talk about other movies and stuff. And I have a game for us to play, you and me to play, actually.
Okay. For the pimples who are listening, if you want to continue listening to me and Brent debrief that episode and play some games, just go to patreon.com/Poundcast and subscribe on there. And check out our sponsors, Rockin' Pins and Louisville Vegan Jerky. LouisvilleVeganFoods.com. Use the code word Poundcast on both of those things for amazing savings.
So yeah,
check it out. Is that it for you, Brent?
You know what? Rate and review it on iTunes. If you like the podcast, give us a rating or whatever. Because it helps get the word out about the podcast.
Yeah, come on.
There's an Instagram page.
The Poundcast on Instagram. We have our shout out to our interns, Chloe, Nathan, and Jack for helping out with the show.
Yep.
And if you want to go to, sometimes I post stuff on Facebook, like the questions I was asking Leonard. The Poundcast is on Facebook, so check that out. That's about it. It's about all I got, Brent.
All right, then we'll see you on the other side.
See you on the other side. Peace. Welcome to the Poundcast. Poundcast. Welcome to the Poundcast.